Welcome back to Constructive. Today, I have a special guest, and I just kind of want to talk about how even this is kind of a great example. Every conversation is kind of like a dance. When I do one of these podcasts, I say something, you need to respond, or you don't, and it gets awkward. And so there's a dance going on, and sometimes we step on each other's toes, and an awkward pause comes up, but eventually maybe we find a similar goal and we can turn it into an interesting conversation that people want to listen to, something compelling. I just think a construction project is like that times a million. And a lot of times those conversations and interactions and relationships become like a mosh pit, and a really chaotic one where people are getting hurt. And I feel like Lean and this whole something you talk about a lot is flow and rhythm. And I think that just like this is a dance, I think we need to turn construction into a more beautiful dance. How do you feel about this analogy, Spencer?
I think that was a beautiful intro. I love that analogy, especially the mosh pit, right? About 6 months ago, I was able to go to Philadelphia with my wife, and me and my best friend. We were hanging out in Philadelphia, and we went to a concert, and I hadn't been relatively close to a mosh pit in nearly a decade. And I remember how painful it can be. And as you get closer to being an old man with my gray beard coming in. Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more that is what construction is, kind of like a mosh pit. And I wonder if we might start to see is there something a little bit easier than jumping into a mosh pit and getting your brains knocked out. So
yeah, can I just get you to do a quick version of your background? We'll get into some fun, detailed Lean Takt stuff, and we'll get nerdy a little bit too, but I want to get to know you a little bit too.
So my dad was in construction, and I remember as a little kid, we had all these side jobs that we would go do. We went and built this retaining wall, this CMU retaining wall when I was like 5. And I remember trying to roll these blocks over to him, pretending like I was really helping. And had another job where we had to remove some trees, and I remember watching my dad it was a pretty thick tree, but he took it out with his bare hands because we didn't have any tools. He was just sitting and rocked it back and forth with a shovel and got it out and just pulled this tree out of the ground. So I thought my dad was Superman. And so it's no reason why, or it's no wonder why I decided to follow in the same career, at least industry, that my father did. And it's fun because whenever I go to the Salt Lake airport, I get to see some of the last work that my dad worked on. He passed away a few years ago, complications from COVID. Not really from COVID, right? That's, the thing.
Sorry to interrupt you. My dad too, by the way.
Oh my gosh.
Very, very similar story. I don't know if we need to get into this now, but apologies to you. And losing a father, my father was also a civil engineer, and I too came into construction because of him, and he died in the COVID time frame. Yeah, I don't have a lot more to say about how he died, but sounds very similar to what happened to you.
And just assuming on our relative youngness,
yeah.
I'm assuming your father also passed probably before his time, right? And that's always hard.
70. So
that's relatively young, right? That's you don't think, a year or two after you retire that's all it is, right?
Right.
So that's rough. And so I have the amazing opportunity because my dad did a bunch of there's a number of different stores and things in the Salt Lake City airport that he actually was project manager over. And so every
time I get to see that my dad built, sorry to interrupt you again.
No, what is it?
So this will make this conversation more fun, but growing up, people would ask him what he did, and he would just say, I deal with our poop. And that's because he was a wastewater treatment engineer. So every time I see a wastewater treatment plant, I pretty much know that my dad built or designed it. So it's fun, but it's also like, hey, that thing that deals with our poop, my dad designed that.
Well, I mean, it brings a new light when, us as sons, we think our dads are the shit. You really thought
there you go.
Your dad
I like
was
this.
the shit. So that's super funny. No, but that's a way of me saying that construction was kind of in my blood. My brother's in construction, my uncle, a number of my cousins and family are still in construction. My great grandfather actually helped build the Hoover Dam. And there's an interesting story about him because so you know the like Easton baseball bats and Easton like sporting goods.
Yes.
That's my family name. So it was
No
my great
way.
grandfather. He owned a bunch of stores throughout all the kind of west side of the United States. He was the largest reseller of Winchester rifles west of the Mississippi back in the
Wow.
day. And the company that purchased Easton Sporting Goods kept the name, and that's what you see today. Is it's a conglomeration because it was a good name, so it was a branding thing. And we have nothing. There's like
No royalties?
nothing, not at all. Like that wasn't even a thing back in the day. It was not at all. But how he started that is when he was at the Hoover Dam. He went up to the lead superintendent and he asked him because they would do these drills and then they would blast. But there was always like two drill holes. They would drill one side, pull it out, and then drill another. And it took so much time to pull the drill bit out that it wasn't worth the actual cost of the drill bit. So they would drill one, pull it out to stick dynamite in, and then drill the other so that the blast would go in the direction that they wanted.
Wow.
But they'd leave all these drills in this or these bits in the side of the mountain, and it looked like crap. And he devised a way in order to go and collect all of them. And he said, "Hey, what if I went and I kind of cleaned up all the drill bits off the side of the mountain?" And the superintendent said, "Yeah, have at it." So he collected all this steel off the side of the mountain, like both faces, because they carved down both sides of the mountain around where the Hoover Dam was. And from all of that scrap, and actually the superintendent ended up paying him because he's like, "I've been thinking about it, I need to do that." So he figured out a way in order to make way more money than he was making as a laborer and pitched it. And the superintendent went for it. And he didn't get like uber rich, but from that money, it was the seed money to start his little business. And then it grew into this little mini empire that he ended up selling later. So it's kind of a fun family story.
For some reason, I thought like baseball bats were going to come out of the Hoover Dam at the end of that story. I don't know.
They should have. That would have been 10 times cooler. Yeah. So when I started in construction, it was, I had a guy legit like pick up a rock this big, throw it at me. I was thrown into the fire, no safety stuff, no vest. I think there was a random hard hat, and I ended up putting it on from inside the trailer. There was no PPE issued to me. There was no real on-the-job training.
Though,
well, I mean, I forget. Maybe it's because the rock actually hit me. I don't know. But yeah, it was throw you in, good luck, and really not good luck. It's like get the hell out of here type thing. Which was interesting because I even worked at the company that my dad worked at, and he was kind of one of the higher ups. So I got hired. I was the kind of peon. I wasn't even qualified to have a shovel in my hand, laborer, right? Like it was just like, go, they need more bodies. Like, here you go to this job, right? And so that's what it was like. I started learning how to operate equipment. So it was kind of like a industrial civil type contractor. I did a lot of work for Union Pacific Railroad, started traveling around with them, turned into a kind of a concrete mason type guy, a form setter. And I was in Roseville, California, and I said, screw this, I'm going back to school. I don't want to, I sit using Porta Johns without any wash stations or hand sanitizer, nothing. And it's like, and I got to go eat my food after this. It's like, this friggin' sucks. Like it was 105 degrees in Roseville, California. And I remember the moment I was just like, I'm going back to school. No, I'm not doing this anymore. Yeah. This was stupid. So I ended up going back to school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so after a while, it was just like, okay, construction management, I guess. And I was a draftsman for a while. I did project engineering. I did a little bit of estimating. I did a little bit of compliance, a little bit of being kind of a assistant superintendent. And then when I graduated from Weber State University, I ended up going and working for a crane company and was their head of dispatch and logistics. And from there, I networked into working at Oakland Construction in their scheduling department. Then it kind of led me on a path to learning about lean, and that kind of started at that crane company, Mountain Crane. We we were on this journey there, and I learned about this thing what I thought was called Lean Six Sigma, and that is a thing out there, but it's a bastardization of all of it, in my opinion. But the concepts, when I ended up at Oakland, I was like, there has to be some like weird correlation here. And so I started learning about all this stuff. And in 2016, I started reading about this thing called takt planning. And I was like, what is this? And when I first heard it, I was like, yeah, there's no way that applies to construction. So it's an interesting thing going from that to being someone that is kind of at least talks about it frequently.
Yeah.
So
Can
that's
we
a
do
little bit about my background.
Appreciate it. I love that too, and I really resonate with a lot of that too. It echoes some of my journey, but I bet I'm just guessing you experienced a lot of this frustration in the industry, and that's why you were open to maybe there's a better way, you know. But I do want to get into exactly. It feels like that most of the time, but can we get into kind of a simple or entry level definitions of takt and lean? Are you willing to give us the 101?
Yeah. So I'll start with lean. And my answer today is heavily influenced by who my current, I'll use the word sensei, is right now. A gentleman by the name of Andrew Takamiya is my coach. And he was kind of the head lean guru guy at Boeing back in the day. He worked for Boeing for 30 years and then went and worked at Kaiser Permanente for 10 years. And now he actually works full-time at Mortenson Construction. Now, when Boeing had its meteoric little rise, and it's had some rough days in the past a little bit, but so I mean, every company has to ask themselves the question every day. But back in the day, what they ended up doing is they went to Toyota and they asked them to come help them, right? And the group that Toyota formed was called Shingajitsu USA. And it was some of their lead engineers who had helped create the Toyota production system going out to try to teach the world. Taichi Ono was sick of having to teach everybody, so he formed this group and said, you guys go do this, right? That's Shingajitsu USA. The main guy that Taichi Ono put in charge of all of that, his name is Shishiro Nakao. Now, Mr. Nakao is the last living remnant of the people who actually built the Toyota production system. So in the world, he's the leading expert in lean. And I've met him. And not only met him, when we brought Shingajitsu out to Mortenson, which I believe in the US we're the only general contractor that has contracted with him. And good luck to anybody else that tries. Like, you can't, there's no waiting list. There's no way to really get on. You have to be like, you have to know someone on the inside. And that's Andrew for us. So Andrew, Mr. Nakao was his sensei for years. And what I've been learning about lean is that it's a lot different than what everybody thinks. And some people see it as a religion, which is wrong, because there is no silver bullet. It's just like everything. Like, there's people that try to monetize it. There's people that try to turn it into something that's not. I just saw a thing on LinkedIn today about a guy asking about, hey, how do you do all this lead stuff without all the effort? Is this little meme? And I was like, I don't think you get what, and it's just this Japanese guy's just staring at him like, you're a moron. There is no silver bullet. There's just hard work to get towards better, whatever that better is. So if I were to sum up lean in one sentence, it's making the work easy through a people-centric approach. Now, I love it. That's not a punchline about how do you make it more efficient, how do you make it faster, how do you make it better, how do you make it cheaper. Like, it's none of that. Honestly, in my opinion. And so it's easy to think that there's things out there that will fix it for us, other than the hard work and dedication of the same thing that like Thomas Edison went through. The 1,000 different light bulbs before he got to the one. You know what that like physically looks like if we were to like chart out like 1,000 like light bulbs and then only one is on? That's like nothing but failure. And then he stumbled onto something by accident because of his relentless trying to figure it out. That's what lean really looks like. And the why it's the people-centric approach is, I wonder if Thomas Edison would have had another person with him, if he would have got there twice as fast because he just had his intellect and intelligence to go off of. And the more we can tap into everybody, and this where it gets into the whole like respect for people. It's like, yeah, that's a fun tagline, but what does that really mean? Like, what did yeah. So that's how I would sum up lean. So
I
you
love
asked
it.
tact. You asked tact as well. Let's do that quickly, and
Do
then
it.
I'd like your perspective. So tact is very simple. It's very easy concept to understand. All it is what pace do you have to go? Not what you can do. What pace do you have to go in order to meet
Mm,
whatever it is that you have to meet? People from manufacturing say customer demand, right? Well, what the heck does customer demand mean in construction?
mm,
If you don't wrestle with that, like you could go down a wrong path and just assume that, well, it means this. Maybe we need to wrestle with that and not think that, oh yeah, the first person that took a stab at it, yes, they're right. Even me, like the crap I say, I think this is right, and only time will tell. And
mm.
this might be some more of that mosh pity mess that we're going through. Somebody asked me one time, what is the what do you want from tact planning? And I said, I don't want to replace CPM or even last planner with tact, because that's replacing one religion with another religion. I think there's something beyond tact. Like, if I don't believe that, then I don't really believe in what lean is, because it's continuous improvement, we say, right?
Mm,
So I don't think there is a thing that fixes it for you. I think there are principles that can help point you towards something better. And I think tact time is one of them. I think tact time is a principle, because all that is what pace would we have to go in order to meet what the customer wants? That's it. It's not anything else. If you
yeah.
search what is tact time on Google, it'll give you what time do you have available time over customer demand, what you have to do, what you have to build. And if you have 10 things you got to build and you got 10 minutes, that means every minute you got to be doing a thing. That's the pace you'd have to go.
Yeah.
So it is a very simple, easy calculation. Now, applying it, that's where it's like, okay, how would you apply this? And there's different thoughts and there's different methods that people are trying to sell out there. They might be helpful, maybe in the short term, but wrestling with what pace would we have to go is the right thing to help point us towards better, in my opinion. So I
I
hope
like
that's
that
helpful.
too. It is, because it's not one size fits all. I'm going to say a bunch of cliches here, but construction just isn't like that. And I think every project is a little different. I still think we need to start aiming towards how can we do more repetitive tasks? How can we create repetitive tasks inside of a construction project, but they are still really unique. And I hate it when people act like you have to use P6 and you have to do a CPM schedule this way, and we put it in the specifications. This is the beginning of my career, and I'm just like, is this really the best way? And I like that even though you're finding things that are better, you're not willing to say now we're at the best, because
Mm-mm.
I don't want to be at the best yet, because it still sucks a little bit. Some stuff still sucks a little bit,
I don't know about a
but I
little
like
bit.
a
I don't know
lot.
about a
Yeah.
little bit. It's still not good.
Yeah. And I just liked hearing about Toyota too, because the other cliche I wanted to bring up is everybody's been talking about our industry hasn't innovated or become more efficient in over 100 years, while things like Toyota and manufacturing are just becoming a lot more efficient. And there's a big gap there. Why? And I'd like to say we can just look at Toyota and be like, oh, now we know why, but it just doesn't really translate like that. And I wonder if you could, maybe we can get a little practical. You've seen this applied on a job site, but yeah, where do you want to take us from there?
Yeah, I think the cliche is about, well, let's just make it real, and this will be my words, not yours, so you don't have to fear any backlash, because it's me saying it, and you can defend anything that you want to defend or not, however you feel. When people try to look at Toyota and they try to make a translation, right? This is this, right? And this means that, or try to like straight up. they say to do this, so we're going to do the same exact thing, right? Even from manufacturing, car manufacturers in the 80s went to go figure out what the hell is Toyota doing.
Yeah.
And we're getting left behind. We got to figure this out, right? And they went there, they saw all these tools and techniques that Toyota was using, and they tried to go one for one. Well, just do that thing in our factory. We could figure out how to do that. Just do that thing. And it didn't work. And so a lot of people said, oh, well, what Toyota's doing, it's not sustainable, or it's not, it really doesn't work. They're full of crap. Something else is going on. They lied to us. Like, there's a lot of like speculation that Toyota lied to all the people and like sent them on these like weird paths to try to keep their competitive advantage. Maybe there's some truth. I have no idea. I wasn't there. I have no clue. But yeah, when you look at manufacturing, I know the chart that you're talking about where it's the productivity of by labor hour, and it's doing this exponential in manufacturing, and actually construction is down 10% from the 60s. Yes, that's concerning. I think there's multiple things there. I think our decline has a lot to do with our increase of safety, which I don't think we should be upset about that part of it. But even if it's just flatlined, let's say it's just flatlined, that there's not a decrease, we're still not pointed in the same direction of getting better. And so that's very interesting. And both you and I, because we're in the industry, we've felt the underlying theme of construction, which everybody knows it. Sometimes it's said, sometimes it's not said, but it's definitely felt. And that's just the way it's always been done. Mm-hmm. That is the theme of our industry and every job site out there, honestly. And a lot of it is because, well, I've been burned and this is just the way to do it. This is the way we figured out how to do it. And the fallacy in that is the thinking that I figured it out. It's the same thinking that people are employing trying to earn money off of Lean or earn money off of all these other things is, I figured it out if you just give me money, right? So that's the problem. So you asked about, I've seen this on jobs. Specifically pose a question and let's talk about it.
I would like to ask, and I don't know if this is fair, but just like what project have you seen not using these principles and then start using these principles and then it get better? Is that too vague? And how does that work? And is it like, I guess the other part of the question is just how do you get people interested in trying something and what should you try first? Because you mentioned if you start saying, I want to be lean and I want to try this tact thing, there's still a lot of pathways you can choose. Where do you start and how do you make sure it has a positive impact on your job site?
Can I share my screen?
Yeah, please.
So you said a job that wasn't using these concepts and then started using these concepts. I have that specific example right in front of me. So
love it.
This is a project, Banner Ocotillo. I was living in Utah at the time, and there was a director that would go down to try to help this project, and there was some schedule issues. And at the time, I was kind of poised to be the schedule department kind of manager, director for Oakland. And he called me down to Arizona to look at this project with him. And it was before the structure was complete over here. They were pouring decks across this diagnostics center on the right hand side right here. And we were over in the trailers over here. It's off to the side. You can't see it, but we were in the construction offices and we were talking about the project. And I was digging into the schedule and I just was looking through a mess. How it was being managed was wrong. All the CPM like auditors would have just like absolutely murdered this thing. It was like, this isn't telling us anything right. It's like, oh my gosh, who's been running it? It was bad. So it's like, okay, there's problems. They thought that they were like 3 weeks behind schedule. And they're like, we got to figure out how, like, is there a way? So they want me to like look in the schedule to see, is there some tie that they did wrong that pulls it back in for them? And I was like, actually, it's not only that there's none of that available, it's that this isn't built in a way that's telling you an actual end date. projected end date, we're 16 weeks behind.
Man.
The crazy thing is they didn't realize that until I found that out in the CPM. How is that a thing? How is the CPM the only thing I'm sorry. Like the CPM, everyone knows it lags way behind actual construction. So it's not a leading indicator. CPM is a freaking long lagging indicator, at least a month behind actual work. At least in most commercial construction projects, of how we use the thing. I know some other industries claim different, and I think they're right. It can be closer, but it's still always a lagging thing because you're gathering what's really happening and you're putting it into a thing. It's always going to be lagging, always.
Yeah.
But this, when I said no, it's 16 weeks. It took them another 3 weeks to believe me. Like I had to say, they're like, no, it can't be.
You're 19 weeks late.
Exactly. And so what at the time, this director that had pulled me down there, he kept telling them, because he had some experience with Takt. He was like, you need to do this. And that's what he would say. So he would preach at them, right? He was really, really good at preaching. And the team had no experience. And so he was just like, you just got to do it. That's what you need. And he had no skills or ability to actually help them do it. So what ended up happening is me and this individual right here, you kind of see in this little video, his name is Jay. I'll do a name drop. Jay Newman, freaking rock star. I love this guy. Jay turned to me and he was like, he keeps yelling at me to do this thing. What? I don't understand what that is, what to do with it. And I said, well, let's sit down right now and let's figure it out together. And so we sat in, I still remember the back room. I remember the blinds. I could picture myself in this room right now. And we sat together for maybe 2 hours and walked through building what you see on this screen right here. And what it was is we started with, what available time do we have? This is when we're supposed to turn over. This is that substantial completion deadline. Okay. If we're going to turn over there and we have all this crap to do, what is the sequence of all the things and how many times are we doing that over and over and over and over again, right? And you could see it's not exactly cookie cutter. There are 10 different departments in this hospital campus. So it's not all the same thing. It's not exactly cookie cutter. But hospitals, they generally have the same sequence. Think about a patient room. There's going to be some plumbing in it because you probably have a sink for the doctor to wash their hands. You probably got some sort of millwork. You probably got some cabinetry in there. Right? You probably got some sort of flooring that's applied with a mastic or some sort of poured flooring, right? Antimicrobial type flooring. You probably have, a wall with lots of crap in it, right? Those head walls, right? And so that describes 75% of the hospital, right? This entire campus, all those rooms. So we were talking about, okay, what is the sequence for most of these things? And so we went through and we realized that there was a lot more commonality, even in the spaces that didn't. We were able to kind of be like, well, this corridor with all of these rooms right here, we'll do all of the drywall when we're doing the drywall in the rooms. We'll do all of this when we're doing that, right? So it was this stuff we'll do at the same time. And so that's how we found the repetitiveness within something that really wasn't exactly repetitive, but it was, right? Because drywall is drywall all throughout the building, flooring. And this was the job that I had a fun conversation with the floor guy. He was like, yeah, but over here's carpet and over here's LVT and over here's, and I was like, okay. So walk me through, what is your process for installing carpet tile? From start to finish, what do you guys do? Well, we go in there, and the first thing we got to do is, usually you guys leave it a mess. So what we do is we take our scrapers in there, we start cleaning off all the floor, and we sometimes we have to level the floor, and then what we do is we apply that weird mastic stuff that you paint on the floor, and then you go through and you start cutting your tiles, and you put it down and you piece them together on the ground. I was like, okay. how do you install LVT? And he was like, well, what we do is, usually you guys leave the floor a mess. So we take and we do our scrapers, and sometimes we got to level the floor. And then what we do is we put this mastic down. And then what we do is we start cutting those LVT tiles, and then we start piecing them together. And I said, so what you're telling me is the process is the exact same. The material is different. And yeah, we need to make sure whatever material and color and whatever. Sure, that's true. But every time you're doing flooring, you're doing it the same. It's the same process. It's standardized work. That's where my brain was going. It's like, there is a similarity here, and it's that you're installing flooring. And he said, yeah. And I said, that's what we're going for. And he came to the conclusion, is like, okay, so I usually have an LVT crew and a carpet crew. And my guys actually can do both. So what you're telling me with this thing here is I should have one crew and flow through the entire building. And the superintendent said, yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Sorry to interrupt you again, but this is what I think is missing in the scheduling world. And it's not like one method or the other. I think a lot of the crappy schedules, people don't sit there and actually think about how the work is done. You have to imagine the work being done. Yes. And think through the tasks, and people just think, oh, we're going to schedule, so I'm going to look at this computer screen and call something a task and then call it dependent on this other task. And I'm like, no, imagine yourself doing the work. Then you can build an actual schedule, right?
And better than even imagining, what if we started actually practicing and prototyping? And we talk about mock-ups. We do mock-ups, right? It's like their compliance or like specification mock-ups. Do the parts fit together? It's like, that has nothing to do with like how it's built. Like the process steps, to your point. Like imagine yourself like swinging the hammer or like applying the mastic or whatever task it is. Like, what does that physically take? What does that process step mean? And how do we go between those process steps? Not like activities. I hate the word activity now because we think like overhead electrical or like even like fire alarm. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What do those things mean? It's a weird globule conglomeration of actual work into something to try to summarize that really tells us nothing. And it's not how the trades think about it or do it at all. So we're always having to do this weird translation of like, well, it's this thing. It's like, well, that's that, this, and the other for me, right? And so they're thinking in the actual work because they do the actual work, right? So
and that's why a 3-week look ahead is always so different than the master schedule. And you're like, what is happening here? I can't match these two. And you're like, oh, because the field guy just doesn't think like the office guy.
Yep. 100%.
The other thing you're mentioning too that I'm like, this is it, because we also need to know these durations. We shouldn't be, but we have been just like making up a duration. Like, oh, we need this project to be done in a year. So that means the drywall guy only has 2 weeks to do this whole whatever. No, we should prototype it. We should figure out what the right amount of time to spend on each drywall activity is by actually doing the work and start iterating and getting better at it.
Well, and this is where it's the right thing to wrestle with, to your point, Seth. Like, is there a pace we would have to go in order to turn the building over? Yes. Can we do that? That's the other side. So in manufacturing, you hear this a lot. It's takt time versus cycle time. Like what it should take or what time we have or what pace we have to go and what pace we went or can go or have the capacity to go. And the fight between the two will help us if we wrestle with that, right? And what we usually do is a lot of people, even when they do takt planning, they're doing cycle time planning, which is very, very different. You're trying to, I think it's this, again, to your point, sitting at a computer screen, trying to make a decision on I think it's that. And what really actually happens, what I've seen happen, is that someone who's in charge of planning, sometimes a super, sometimes a PM, sometimes a planning and scheduling person, whoever it is, they reach out to somebody. Let's say the super reaches out to his buddy who works at some a trade contractor, right? How long does this type of thing take? Well, and that person's thinking, this guy's a jackass and doesn't know how to run work, so I'm going to tell him 5 days when it takes me like 2. And so he says 5. And so that guy turns around and he tells the person who's plugging it into P6, this is like an 8-day activity. And then that person that puts it in is like, well, that guy, he's never right, so I'm going to put 10. So we went from a conservative 2 days to 10. And we wonder why everything is a moving
exact thing happen,
Yeah, and we wonder why everything is a moving target in construction. It's because we don't trust each other, because we're not really doing the real work. We're trying to take what's in the real life and make it easy in the office we're trying to make the office folks' lives easier. When in all reality, if we really cared about the work, about the industry, about the craft, about the people, if we really, had respect for people, what we would do is we would focus on making the work easy for the people installing the work. And I talked about Mr. Nakao. When he came to Mortensen, there's one thing he said that really stuck with me. He told us that we didn't care. You guys don't care. You guys just don't care. And I was like, what the jerk? What do you mean? Yeah. I'm just kidding. But I was like, okay. And he was like, these people out there doing this work, if you really cared, you would treat them as though they were your mother, father, grandfather. Like, would you let your grandfather or your mother go out there and do what you're expecting them to do? No. Yeah, you guys have not cared enough to make the work easy. You guys don't care. You guys just don't care for some reason. And that I was like, oh, dang. All of this, it's a mosh pit that we've been talking about. I do think there's a point at which we have to start actually caring. One, because I've been coached that way. But two, I start looking at it as if we really did care, we'd focus on how do we make this easier? Because think about it. If installing whatever it is, building, producing, whatever word you want to use for it, if it was easier, do you think the quality would be better if it was easier to do? Well, no. If you're going to install, I don't know, we were talking about flooring before, and we could work in a practice environment and start getting better at what we do to understand the actual work. And we found an easier way. Not I told you how to do it easier, but if we put our heads together and just asked ourselves, is there an easier way to do this? And oh my gosh, there's an easier way to do it. Do you think the quality would go up or down if we figured out an easier way to install flooring? Seth, do you think it would be better quality or worse quality if we found an easier way to do it? 100%. If we found an easier way to do it and it's higher quality, do you think it would eventually be faster or slower? What do you think?
Faster.
And probably cheaper. But the problem is we do that in the exact opposite direction. We don't start from how do we make it easier? We start from how in the hell do we make this cheaper and go faster? It's the wrong direction. We're starting from the wrong direction. We should start from how might we make this easier? Because that leads inevitably to the others. And it sounds counterintuitive. And I've figured out over the years that a lot of times, maybe most of the time, it's the opposite of what you think is the right answer, a better way. And so focusing on making it easier will have those long-term ramifications versus the short-term thinking like we have right now, just make it cheaper or just go faster, right? We haven't really, just go faster. We haven't figured out our system. We haven't figured out our processes. We haven't really done anything other than be petulant children and saying, we just want to go faster. Okay, what does that mean and why and all of that? So to wrap a bow on this story here for the Banner Ocotillo job, after this, I started going out to this job at a minimum monthly. It was weekly after I moved to Arizona. So after coming to this job and helping them, they ended up convincing me to move down to Arizona to help them with this project and others in the Phoenix area. And it started to change the job in ways that I hadn't expected before, because I had a little experience with Takt in the past, and I thought it had everything to do with visualizing the schedule. When I would walk, I remember walking through, I was like walking somewhere in this part of the building at the time, first floor. And it dawned on me, it's like, is somebody important coming to the job today? I was like, this is like extremely organized and clean today. Like, what is happening? And I went and I talked to the superintendent. I was like, is somebody coming out today? And he's like, no, it's just a regular old day. And I was like, why is it so nice out there? Like, what are you guys doing? And he was like, we just got into this like rhythm. And it's just like everyone, and the thing that they'd been like working towards is, how do you get everyone so they don't set up a shop somewhere and then they're going out to do the work, that all of that moves with them, right? And I was like, ooh, that's super interesting. That was something I didn't create that. This team was kind of driving that. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like that, what a awesome idea of like, you're mobile all the time. And so you have to constantly be cleaning up after yourself and moving stuff. And it's not setting up shop. It's nimble. It's constant movement. It's flow. That's what I originally thought. Oh, they're like actually like flowing. I was like, okay, this is cool. So I thought this was the bee's knees. And there's a little video right here. They actually printed the Takt plan that you see right here on 5x7 cards. And they handed them out not just to the trade partners, to every single person, from the floor sweep to the person running the crane. Everybody had this in their pocket. And every morning when they would do their bend and stretch type thing, they would do this fun thing where they would ask everybody on the job, hey, for a $50 gift card to Home Depot, where's the electrician supposed to be in a month? And someone would raise their hand. Here, it's like, but he's not gonna, and like stuff like that. And they're all like, oh, it's like, exactly. And so they go down and give him a $50 gift card. So they made it this like fun thing, not like, this is the schedule, we're gonna shove it down your throat. They turned it into this culture. And I was like, all right. What ended up happening is this job flowed like this. And not only did they hit this date that was, again, 16 weeks earlier than what the CPM had been projecting where we were headed, but they finished 4 days early.
Wow.
So it's an example of creating stability. That was my takeaway from this. I was like, okay, we created some sort of standardization and stability. And they like started like building a culture around flow. I was like, that was like really, really cool. So that was an example of one of the reasons why I started getting really biased towards, Takt planning is the way. That's the thing, right? So
yeah, I want to keep going. I don't know. Do you have a hard out just to check at 7:30 or anything?
I don't. We can keep going.
Okay, good. Appreciate it. Because I just want to talk to you about some other stuff. You've already given me like the nuggets that you promised, I feel like, but we could talk about this forever, and we're probably going to have to do part 2, part 3, maybe too. But I kind of want to selfishly get into technology. Do you think technology is going to help us implement Takt and Lean, and do you think it's important on a construction site? How do you see technology being more included in the future?
So I'm going to go in 2 opposing directions, because that's what's going on in me right now with this question. I'll give you the first one. So I think we're all seeing something that we've never seen before, technology that is brand new. And I'm talking about AI. We don't know what that means. We don't know what its capabilities will be in a matter of years. just within the past couple years, as it has become much better, it can do some pretty fantastic things in ways that I don't think anybody ever dreamed of. And with that being the case, I don't think anybody really can predict what the crap this direction is going to take us and what it will spur in the future of where that will take us. I think the domino effect, just like the internet, no one had any idea what the internet was going to entail, which ultimately led to smartphones, right? Like this right here, because of the internet, right? Like really, honestly. So we really don't know what's going to happen. And in my opinion, I've told people this, it's like, I think at some point Elon's going to get like really, really bored with what he's doing. It's like, why don't we just like fundamentally and like make construction better? Because that sucks. And like he'll like sick all of his like abilities, people, and technology on the problem and just fix it. And it's like, oh shit, like we've been trying to do that, and he just comes in and flips it on its head. So part of me like feels that way, and it's like, yes, it's gonna be part of the future and changing it. And there's that. So yes, that's my yes. I'm gonna give you a no though, and this is the other half of me. This is the wrestle inside that's happening, you know. I've noticed that we, for some reason, think that taking the field, taking the work, and putting it in the office is what it takes, is what is helpful, is valuable. And I think that's a fundamental fallacy of instead of working on the thing, you work on something that isn't the thing. So you're over here. It's the same thing with like the P6. You're trying to figure out over here in some like weird software that is, one, difficult to read, understand, and not a lot of people do well, and doesn't communicate well, and is all of the flaws. And there's a lot of pros to it too. Like I'm a big believer that database is a freaking rock star of a database. Like I don't think it's like the devil. I'm not trying to say CPM is the wrong thing. I'm trying to say we use it in a way that it's not meant to be used, in my opinion, or it shouldn't be used. And so we're trying to figure out construction here when construction is there. It's physically happening there. That is reality. And we're trying to live in a virtual reality. And we all know, VR and all this virtual stuff, it's getting more and more convincing. But is it real? No. Do we feel like it helps us? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if we can't make reality match what we think over here, why are we playing around here when we should be doing the hard work here? So that's my no, I don't think it does. I don't think that I have yet to see, and I've tried many, many tools, many, many things. And so I think some of that is I'm starting to get calloused to, no, there's no silver bullet, and it's all the same thing. And when you take a tool, you're adopting a process. You're not creating or improving a process. You're just, what's an easy way out? What's your process? I'll just do that. That's not, in my opinion, going to really help us build the muscle to build standards, to build processes, to build production systems, to help us build whatever it is that we're building. So that's the wrestle that's going on inside me is, I think there's a future that we don't know, and I believe it's going to change things radically. I don't think anything that anyone's trying that is like a little tech startup or any of the things that we see out there. And sorry to all the people that want to use these tools, even if they have the words in the names and all this stuff to try to like buzzword you into believing that they're gonna solve your problems. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have seen zero evidence that any of them really help anything. Matter of fact, I think they do the opposite. I think they actually lull us into a belief that the things that we're doing with them actually make a difference, when in all reality, they really don't. And maybe I think there's people that, what about this short-term like what about this 5%? What about this 20%? Like what about this? What about that? Okay. Can you do that consistently, always, all the time, every single time? Is it repeatable, reliable, and always gives us what our customers, internal and external, want and need?
Yeah.
No one can say yes to that. Not a single one of them. Any of them. Case in point. So,
Yeah, the evidence is apparent too. Like we were saying at the beginning of this, we haven't improved and manufacturing did. But it makes me think about BIM too, to be honest. And I just had this theory for a long time that we need to build every project virtually before we build it physically. And I'm like, hearing you say that makes me think, yes, like that can be valuable. We can avoid danger that way. We can also put some things to the test theoretically, but we cannot see if that building will fall down. Like, yes, in the model, maybe it stands, but we just all know that it's not a one for one. When you build something in the field, it's not like building something on a computer. There's a lot of unknowns in the field.
yep. And ask any engineer. I have a buddy that's a mechanical engineer that used to work for a company called Ultradent, and he would tell me about all the different cool tech simulators and things that they would build things in and put it through. Does this work in real world, but virtually, right? Like, so trying to do that. And just like when they're building rockets or anything, when they build them virtually and then they go to build them in the real world, they usually don't work, but the computer said that they do. So maybe whoever built the computer or the software, the thinking or the whatever physics engine, maybe it's not exactly precise, or maybe just maybe we didn't consider all things, or maybe just maybe we didn't take into consideration the human error, or we didn't, or we didn't, or we didn't, or we didn't. Tolerances, whatever it is. There's so many real nuances that reality can teach us,
Yeah.
but we're afraid of reality. So we want to go virtual. We want to make it easy by just saying, how do we just click a button and it says yes or no? And sometimes I think it's only through hard work. It's the Ozempic pandemic. I just want to
Yeah.
take a pill to get skinny. This is actually personal to me right now. I look at myself and I'm 35 pounds lighter than I've been since basically I've been married, and
Congrats.
zero anything. It literally was diet. So I did a year ago, I started doing CrossFit and I lost a little bit, but then I like plateaued and I was just working myself like really hard, just trying to, I was like, go to the gym, go to the gym. And I was listening to a podcast and a guy said something profound that I was like, I think I knew that. I just was like looking for I'll put the hard work in, but like the real hard work is like, what are you shoving into your mouth? He said,
Mm.
you can't outrun the spoon. And I was like, damn it. And I really like my Oreos. I love those.
Yeah.
I love me some Oreos. So
Yeah.
I have dramatically changed what is going into my mouth, and it has dramatically changed me. And that's every day, every second decision that I have to make. And I'm not the most fit person. I'm not saying this is something that I've cracked, but that's hard work. And sometimes we don't want to go through the hard work, but we still want to make it easy. So we're looking for the easy button or the silver bullet. That's not a thing. And for this conversation, I am not saying that BIM has zero value and we shouldn't do it. Toyota has design models and simulations of their things, but then they also spend a lot of time prototyping and practicing and figuring what are their processes and creating their own custom tools for their specific things. We don't do that. All tools we use, how do you go pick it up off the shelf? How do you one size fits all? This goes full circle to the first thing you started the podcast with. Construction is not a one size fit all, and yet we try to use tools in a one size fit all. All tools, hand tools, technology tools, Procore, like I feel like it could be mean to them now that they're like the thing, right?
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have been back in the day, but like
We're punching up now.
yeah, exactly. No reason to hit the guys trying to make a living, but yeah, Procore's made it. So we could say, yeah, we all know Procore didn't really solve any problems. Really? Did it really solve our problems? No, it moved them.
Yeah.
It moved them.
In some cases, they actually moved it on themselves. Like now we complain about Procore instead of other
Yes, because we didn't really figure out our processes. We didn't really, that's what I'm talking about. We just adopt some other process. So we're adopting now what Procore thinks. It's like, well, Procore didn't figure out every single construction company project in the world and then say, I figured it all out. I am now God. Here you go. I bestow upon you the light and knowledge of truth and light. It's like, that is not reality. And so because that's not reality, I don't know why we all thought that that was going to be the thing that changed everything.
It's
And
funny,
then
right?
there's,
Like
yeah.
I think about this too because I think sometimes you wear a safety vest and you think you're safe, you know?
Mm,
And we use a tool and we think it's going to solve the problem, you know? And I just think like you, this is why I like when stuff in work really reflects the entirety of my personal life as well. Everything that's good is hard, and everything that's worth doing is really about self sacrifice. It's about
yes.
giving up something I want right now so that my future is better, or my child's future is better, or my neighbor's future is better. And that's worth it because if my neighbor's future is better, it all kind of comes back to me. It's like the high tide lifts all the boats, you know, like I
Yes.
want to raise the tide. I don't want to arbitrarily put my boat up on a mountain. Like I want to raise the tide so that we're all happier. And I think it's beautiful to hear you say that that actually applies to a construction project and it definitely applies to your life too. So appreciate it. I've had a lot of cool thoughts and ideas come up in my mind while you've been talking. So we're gonna have to do this again, and I just really appreciate meeting you. How can people reach out to you, or how do you like to tell people to find you?
So I'm I work full time at Mortensen Construction. So I'm really not out there trying to be a consultant, trying to whatever. If people want to reach out to me, you probably could find me. I am on LinkedIn. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I do have I call it a side gig, a side little thing. I call it Takt University. It has two main goals: to help enlighten um, both the upcoming generation. I work with a bunch of colleges and universities to try to get some of these concepts into their curriculum so that we're hopefully helping that next generation, but then also for contractors and people out there in the industry. I have the main thing that's on there right now is a online course about tact planning. So the company is called Takt University. Legit, the website is www.takt.university. That's it. So super simple, takt.university. That's it. I also have a annual subscription that people can be a part of to join a community where I have the largest library of, I'll say, lean applied to construction in the world. And I don't say that lightly. Even with like IGLC and all of these people that like collect papers, there's more content on this platform. So it's a Discord server, and there's the folks that I learned tack planning from, the Germans and some of the people from the Scandinavian countries and people in the US. Like, it's all the nerds. If the nerds want to get together and start applying this to their work, this is why you join this subscription. And we work together, and it's all a virtual type thing. I drop videos in there. We do reviews of things. We talk about like these topics at kind of the next level. So if people want to join and actually start to implement things, like if you want help, it's a journey. And so that's why it's an annual subscription. There's no other way to really do it. It takes a long time. And I'm not looking to, how do I become the consultant where I can milk you for some money? We're not consultants. If you need me longer than a year, I'm not doing my job because I'm trying to share my perspective. And if I can't do that within a year, and if I can't help you start on your journey, then I'm not good at my job. So I'm not looking for a long-term engagement. I'm looking for how do we all, to your point, raise that water level together. So again, that's Takt University. Yeah, there's some awesome things on the horizon that are going to come out that'll be a little bit more practical, more than just online training and some implementation support and community. But yeah, Takt University is my main outside source for people to kind of engage with. And so if you want to come be part of it, feel free. You don't have to. I hope that we're all on this journey together. And Seth, thank you for inviting me on the podcast. This has been awesome. Every time I do one of these, I feel like there's more of us out there than we think.
Yeah.
And super excited that there's people that are at least willing to question and be willing to not just jump on the next bandwagon, like continue to question and like really like dig in. So
Yeah.
this has been
Well,
amazing. Thank
appreciate you. And I will put some stuff in the notes and comments so people can find what you're talking about. But I also just appreciate you. Let's do it again. Thanks, everybody.